जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। 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 जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा। प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद। ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद् चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी जगद्गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की। संतरा श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंद हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्योत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, chapter 13, entitled The Appearance of Lord Varaha. Text 43. Kashraddhita natamastava prabho Kashraddhita natamastava prabho Rasam gataya bhuva udvibarhanam Rasam gataya bhuva udvibharvanam न विस्मयोऽसौ त्वयि विश्वविस्मये न विस्मयोऽसौ त्वयि विश्वविस्मये यो माययेदं ससृजेति विस्मयम् यो माययेदं ससृजेति विस्मयम् कश्रद्धधीतान्यतमस्तव प्रभो रसां गताया भुव उद्विबर्हणम् न विस्मयोऽसौ त्वयि विश्वविस्मये यो माययेदं ससृजेति विस्मयम् श्रद्धधीतान्यतमस्तव प्रभो रसां गताया भुव उद्विबर्हणम् विस्मयोऽसौ त्वयि विश्वविस्मये अश्रद्धधीतान्यतमस्तव प्रभो रसां गताया भुव उद्विबर्हणम् न विस्मयोऽसौ त्वयि विश्वविस्मये यो माययेदं ससृजेति विस्मयम् कश्रद्धधीतान्यतमस्तव प्रभो रसां गताया भुव उद्विबर्हणम् न विस्मयोऽसौ त्वयि विश्वविस्मये यो माययेदं ससृजेति विस्मयम् कश्रद्धधीतान्यतमस्तव प्रभो रसां गताया भुव उद्विबर्हणम् विस्मयोऽसौ त्वयि विश्वविस्मये माययेदं ससृजेति विस्मयम् श्रद्धधीतान्यतमस्तव प्रभो रसां गताया भुव उद्विबर्हणम् न विस्मयोऽसौ त्वयि विश्वविस्मये येदं ससृजेति विस्मयम्। माताजी श्रद्धधीतान्यतमस्तव श्रद्धधीतान्यतमस्तव प्रभो रसां गताया भुव उद्विबर्हणम् न विस्मयोऽसौ त्वयि विश्वविस्मये who else Shraddhadhita can endeavor Anyatamaha anyone besides yourself. Tava, your, Prabhu, O Lord, Rasam, in the water, Gataya, while lying in, Bhuvaha, of the earth, Udvibarhanam, deliverance, Na, never, Vismayaha, wonderful, Asau, such an act, Tvai, unto you, Vishwa, universal, Vismaye, full of wonders, Yaha, one who, Mayaya, by potencies, Idam, this, Sasraje, created, Ativismayam, surpassing all wonders. The translation and purport by Abhay Charnarvind Bhaktivedanta Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The translation. Who else but you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, could deliver the earth from within the water? It is not very wonderful for you, however, because you acted most wonderfully in the creation of the universe. By your energy, you have created this wonderful cosmic manifestation. The purport. When a scientist discovers something impressive to the ignorant mass of people, the common man, without inquiry, accepts such a discovery as wonderful. But the intelligent man is not struck with wonder by such discoveries. He gives all credit to the person who created the wonderful brain of the scientist. A common man is also struck with wonder by the wonderful action of material nature, and he gives all credit to the cosmic manifestation. The learned Krishna conscious person, however, knows well that behind the cosmic manifestation is the brain of Krishna, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.10. Maya dhakshena prakritihi suyate sa characharam. Since Krishna can direct the wonderful cosmic manifestation, it is not at all wonderful for him to assume the gigantic form of a boar and thus deliver the earth from the mire of the water. A devotee is therefore not astonished to see the wonderful boar, because he knows that the Lord is able to act far more wonderfully by his potencies, which are inconceivable to the brain of even the most erudite scientist. Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pascharti Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Bow down to all the devotees, the great devotees of Rukmini Dwarkadish, and our leader Savas Prabhu, the Talit Mataji, and all the Prabhupada disciples, Amal Bhakta Swami Maharaj, all the Matajis. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, where it's so beautifully describing how the Supreme Personality of Godhead can assume any form. He is not subjected to taking any permission from anyone. He can appear as he wants, as he desires. Just like the great devotee, the Queen Kunti, she says that, my dear Lord, you can appear in any form. You have unlimited forms. And you can appear from anywhere. You don't have any restriction as such. Actually, even without appearing, you can still get the work done. You don't even have to appear. But out of your causeless mercy, you appear and you give benediction. You give the pleasure to the devotees. So such a great personality as you are. Sometimes people think that, oh, Krishna is Indian God or he's Hindu God. Or sometimes somebody may say that Prabhupada, oh, he's great, he's Bengali. You know, like in my school, when I was in 9th grade, I remember there was a chapter on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in our school. We were like, the teacher opened the book and said, today we're reading the chapter number so and so, and it is about Sri Chaitanya. Sri Chaitanya, they didn't call Mahaprabhu. They said Sri Chaitanya was such a great devotee of Krishna, and he was so famous in Bengal. He was a Bengali Baba. So that's how they described. And then when we came home and everything, I remember that, you know, wow, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so great that he's even in our textbooks. Not that only that Prabhupada talks about him, not that only we talk about, but even our textbooks. Because for a little child, you know, the textbooks are very, you know, authoritative. We're like, wow, my textbook talks about him. Then the reaction of my mother was, we already have Tukaram Maharaj. You know, it's like Maharashtrian, our saint. Why do you want to, you know, chase after Bengali Baba? So that's the problem. Many people, they think that the great personalities are, you know, confined to a particular caste or creed or color or a particular region. But the Queen Kunti, she says that, oh my dear Krishna, you could have appeared anywhere because you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like the sandalwood trees can grow anywhere, but somehow they are found abundantly on Malaya, on the Malaygiri. There is a mountain where there is, it's called Malay. It has, everywhere you see, there is sandalwood trees, everywhere. There is like abundance of sandalwood trees. So much so that even the ladies in that area, they cut the sandalwood and they use it as a fuel. Just to boil some water, okay, we're going to use the sandalwood for just boiling water as fuel. So Queen Kunti says, you could have appeared anywhere, but you have graciously appeared and blessed Yadu dynasty. And similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we cannot say that he is only particular to Bengal. No, he could have appeared anywhere. And in any place he appears, he is extremely glorious. And he can, Supreme Personality of God, it can appear in any species also. We cannot see that, oh, he is a boar. You know, it's not, boar is like, you know, not very clean or not very seen as a great animal or anything. It's just boar, you know, like shukar. So he's constantly sniffing around. You know, we constantly see this boar going around, and it's not given any respect as such. Nobody cares about the boar. Like when we had the ISKCON temple opening in Pandharpur, so many visitors came in a small, very small village. So many of the foreigners came, big devotees from all over the world. And it being like a small village, there was not many facilities back in those days, end of the 90s. So there were not nice toilets or anything. So if you have to respond to the nature's call, you have to go outside and, you know, find a bush or something. And those foreigners would tell us that, oh, the pigs in your house, the pigs in your village, everywhere, they're so lovey-dovey. In the morning when we are going, they follow us around and they're so happy, then they love us so much. And then we had to tell them, because foreigners, they don't have much experience, that they're not after you. So, the boar is not seen that, not well taken as such. But the point is, when Krishna becomes boar, he becomes the most beautiful, the most magnanimous. And we cannot even see him as a boar. He is the transcendental personality of Godhead. And if we just think that, oh, he's just boar, he's just like a pig, then it's sinful. It is said, if somebody considers Bhagavatam as a book, or someone considers Guru to be just a human being, or the deities to be just made up of stone or wood, it's such a big sin. Similarly, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, in any form he appears, he is still the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the most magnanimous and he's the most beautiful. And whenever the devotees see him, he only ignites the pleasure in the hearts of those devotees. Especially in today's purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that when Varaha, he went inside the Garbhodak ocean, he went all the way inside and he brought the earth and he placed the earth back in the orbit. And then the devotees, the sages and all the great personalities, they are giving their praises. They are saying, oh, who else could have done this but you, my Lord? So Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, responds to the prayers of the devotees. And the devotees are saying, it's such a great act, nobody else could have done it. Who would go in the Garbhodak ocean? Just think about any Pacific Ocean or any ocean on the surface of earth. Is so dense, it's so intricate. The scientists have not found anything much. We don't even know the length and breadth actually of the ocean, one insignificant ocean on the surface of earth. What to speak of Garbhodak ocean? And going inside all the way to the bottom and then finding earth is not an easy task. It's like impossible task. The great personalities, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, in Varaha Purana it is described, nobody even knew where to begin this search for the earth. But so only when they prayed to Lord Vishnu, he has appeared and has taken earth. Vedan uddharate jaganti vahate bhugolam udbibhrate. So Jayadeva Goswami in his Dashavatar, he says that Krishna, you do so many wonderful activities according to the time, place and circumstances to bring pleasure to your devotees, but ultimately, this is all that Keshava Dhrita. Ultimately, he says that, you do this, Daityam Dharete, Halam Kalete, Karunya Matanvate, Blechan Murchayate, Dashakriti Krute, Krishnaya Tasmai Namaha. So he says, ultimately, these all incarnations are there, but Krishnaya Tasmai Namaha. Ultimately, the root is Krishna. So Jayadeva Goswami, our acharyas have written such nice poetry also that they're not saying that Lord Varaha is the greatest. Yes, we love all your forms, but we pay the obeisances to the root, the ultimate personality, Krishnaya Tubhyam Namaha. So that is also a very important point to understand. And especially in today's purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning how the ordinary people, they get attracted so easily to some insignificant scientific discovery. Like, iPhones, oh, what a technology. Or like nowadays they have so many new, like a virtual reality. Now AI is in talks, artificial intelligence. So people are like, wow, they're awestruck. And because they're very ordinary brain, they don't think that these are just some of the things, wonderful things that we are barely discovering from the nature. The scientists are not creating these things. It's not that when Newton was sitting under the tree, an apple fell down and he started thinking, oh, the apple fell down? Why it did not go horizontally? Why it did not go upwards? So he started thinking, oh, it fell down. That means there has to be some gravitational pull. So then he started thinking, that means earth is pulling everyone. So then he discovered the gravitational law. Then he even calculated that the gravitational force G is equal to 9.81. And then he is like, wow, I found out something great. And all the ordinary people, they're like, wow, the Lord Newton, he is amazing. But we have to understand, these scientists, they are only discovering. They are not the law makers. They are only making the discovery in the great creation of Krishna. If we do not see the artist, if we do not see the lawmaker, then we are actually missing the whole point. Like Prabhupada mentions in today's purport also, that ordinary people, they get easily attracted even to the nature. When somebody goes to Niagara Falls, they see such a huge, gigantic waterfall, and they are like, wow, so nature is the greatest. Mother Nature, nature is God. Because they see that these huge mountains or these big oceans, these are not scientific discoveries. Not a scientist can make these. So, they're like really awestruck, wonderstruck when they see such beautiful nature. And they become the devotees of the nature. But Srila Prabhupada also mentions that we should not stop at being the devotee of the nature, because nature is dead unless and until the Supreme Personality of Godhead glances over it. So we should not miss the point. The point is that the nature acts only under the direction of Krishna, the Supreme Person. So it's like, one mother was complaining to the father. She was telling the husband that, wherever I hide the money, he finds it and he steals it. We have to do something about our son. He has been stealing the money. And wherever I hide it, he finds it. So the father said, you should hide the money in his textbooks. He will never find it then. And that's what happened. The point is, we look everywhere in the world. We go around searching for happiness. We look everywhere. We appreciate, so-called tiny little details of the material world. But somehow we just miss the point that all these different intricate, the design of the material nature is working only under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada said, when you look at the sun, you should not just look at the sun as such. You should think that who is the creator of this huge sun, such a huge powerhouse. Srila Prabhupada also one time mentioned, don't talk about Hitler. Talk about the person who killed Hitler, ultimately by the arrangement of God. Hitler was killed. Srila Prabhupada also one time said that do not be attracted by the so-called scientific discoveries. Rather, think about the person who even created the brain of the scientist. Now, if we don't think in that manner, then we're missing the whole point. Just like there were two friends who went on a trek. He went, climbing all the way up on a mountain. And when finally they reached the top of the mountain, they found a nice tree, and then they felt, wow, such a nice place. And it was very late, so they put their nice tent, and then they both were sleeping inside. And then they were talking about what we did and how such a nice trek was this, and while speaking, they both slept. In the middle of the night, one friend woke up the other person, and he said, hey, wake up, wake up. And then the person, the sleepyhead, woke up, and he is thinking, why did you wake me up? He says that, don't you see anything unusual? And he's like, oh yeah, such a beautiful sky. I see so many stars. Don't you see, what does that tell you? Oh, that means the city that we come from, it's so polluted, we can't see any stars, we don't see the moon that clearly, but here everything is so clear. He's like, oh, you fool, but what does that mean? That means we are in the happiest place on the earth. He said, oh my God, you fool, that means our tent has been stolen. Otherwise, how can you see the sky and the stars and the moon and everything? So the point is, we are looking so many different directions, speculating so many different scientific theories, bringing so many different products into the society, thinking that this will make us happy, that will make us happy, but we're missing the point. The point is, unless and until we bring God as the center of our daily activities, when we do not serve God, when the God is not at the center of the society cannot be happy. If the God is not in the center of a family, the family cannot be happy. There will always be quarrels. And if the God is not the center of our actions will never find the true purpose. So that's why Prabhupada always stressed, and he brought Krishna in every single detail. Because he said the scientific theories, even though they are very alluring, very attractive, but they are very short-lived. And they're based on the speculation. So today they say something, then tomorrow they say something else. I remember in my school days, there used to be a pesticide called DDT. They would sprinkle it everywhere in the school. And that would prevent all the ants and all the other insects, and they coming and biting the students and everything. At the same time, in America, the scientists were saying that this pesticide should be banned because it is very harmful for human beings. And now we are all grown up, and recently they found out that's the worst poison, even to smell. Even if somebody smells it, his life is shortened. Recently they found out, and I'm like, I have literally grown up smelling it and living on it. We used to eat around it. So the scientific theories are completely bogus most of the times. And even if they are correct, they are just finding out. They are just discoveries. It's not that the scientists are making those laws. Just like Newton is not saying that the gravitational force is 9.81 because I say so. He cannot say that. It is 9.81 gravitational force because Krishna has set it like that. Because it's God's arrangement. Because Krishna says so. Krishna has created in that fashion. Also, E is equal to mc square. That theory of relativity, Einstein, very famous theory. Where when the speed of light, they said that's the highest speed, and especially in the vacuum, the speed of light, the light travels extremely fast, and at that speed, it's practically the mass is eternally expanding, continuous. So that was his theory, which was appreciated for more than 100 years actually. And recently they found out that that theory is not the perfect one. They recently found out that the speed of the light is not the highest. The whole theory is based on the first assumption that the speed of light is the highest. And then there is entire theory written upon it. And recently they found out that, oops, we found subatomic particle, we found something that is faster than speed. So the entire theory that is based on that assumption, the speed of light is the highest, fastest. Now that entire, the base is gone. So people are saying that this theory of relativity, for which Einstein has been given so many different awards, prizes, and people have glorified it for 100 years. Now they're saying that, oh, sorry, what can we do? Now we are finding new things. So that's why it's always important to rely on the knowledge that is coming down in the parampara system. And that's what we see in Srimad Bhagavatam, especially second canto, 5th chapter begins Narad Muni speaking with his father, Lord Brahma, and he's saying that, oh my dear father, you are creating this universe as a secondary creator, and you're holding the universe just like a child holds a walnut. I mean, you are such a great creator, but please tell me, who is the actual, the supreme person behind it? Because you are the original creator as far as we are concerned. In the material paradigm, you are the absolute best person. But I want to know from you that what is the knowledge that you have about the absolute primary creator of this entire creation. So we see that Narad Muni is submissively inquiring from Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma is also being pleased with him, giving the full knowledge that he received from Lord Vishnu. And this is how the knowledge is flowing down from one spiritual master to the next spiritual master and down to the next disciple. And this way the knowledge has come in our hands just because of Srila Prabhupada's mercy. We have received the knowledge as it is in our hands. And when we read Srila Prabhupada's books, we have to understand that these books are not written, by some fertile brain with some speculation. It's not some man's speculation. Not that the yogis or the back in the days, Vyasadeva and all the sages, they would be drinking some kind of beverage, they were high and they imagined, speculated so many things. Nobody can claim that this is my knowledge. Nobody can say that I have discovered this knowledge, because this knowledge is coming down from, in the parampara system, being passed down by the great spiritual masters. So when Srila Prabhupada was asked that you have written so many wonderful books, your books are so clear that once we read your books, then literally everything starts making sense, and we clearly understand who we are, who is God, and what is our relationship with God. So Srila Prabhupada said, I'm just like a postman. I'm just delivering the message that I received from my spiritual master. So in that fashion, if we take the message that we have received from Srila Prabhupada and distribute to all the other conditioned souls who do not have it, we can also make them happy. And we can also please Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anybody has any quick question or a quick comment? We can. Anybody has question first, and then we can comment. Okay then.
First of all, I want to thank you for a very wonderful class. It made me feel extremely tiny next to Krishna. And that's the way I should feel. That's the proper way to feel, and not to feel big, great, grand, glorious, and wonderful. Those things may be a good, when you're having a contest of some sort, but in reality, we are always tiny, insignificant, worthless, and good for nothing. And anything good, powerful, wonderful, and glorious comes by the mercy of Krishna. And once we have that in mind, we can be as big as necessary. Somebody else giving a talk? Okay, no, thank you. Yeah, because I don't compete. You can have the floor if you like. Okay. So anyway, I wanted to bring this point that you've made, which put me in my proper position, because we tend to forget that we are tiny and insignificant and worthless and good for nothing. But by Krishna's grace, we can become who knows what great, because He is amazing, He can make us amazing. But we always have to remember what the source is, as you have so nicely mentioned in your class. But there was a question that came to my mind, and that was, You spoke about happiness. So first of all, sometimes I get into conversation or argument with persons, and they use the word happiness. So first thing I say is, what do you mean by happiness? What is happiness? Well, you know, you feel good. Is your happiness the same as a butterfly? He feels good also, flapping his wings and flying here and there. What is the actual happiness? So generally they start scratching heads and starts wondering and says, well, it's hard to put into words. That's because you don't really know what it is. When you know what it is, you will have a word for it, or you'll invent a word for it. So basically, when we speak of happiness, there's two aspects. There's material happiness, which is completely different from spiritual happiness. And we as devotees are embarked on trying to increase, improve, and heighten our spiritual happiness, which we don't care whether our material happiness is great or big or wonderful. If you need it, you can get it, but it has no real, true relevance with respect to happiness. So that's really a good thing. Once we know what spiritual happiness is, and it's all over Prabhupada's books, you know, what spirit, and once we know what material happiness is, and then we ask ourselves, if material happiness has no staying power, it's here today and, as you mentioned, gone tomorrow. You can't relish it forever. And if you lose it, that's the end of it. If somebody steals it, that's the end of it. If you are anxious that you may not have it because there may be some problem in the world, then that's the end of it. So the important point is this, is that in spiritual life, that doesn't happen. In spiritual life, you always have it. It's always there, unless you're overcome by material misery. That can take it out of our consciousness, although it is still there, but it's not, we're not conscious of it. For example, I'm sitting on the mat, but if I'm covering the mat, then, and somebody says there's no mat there, I say, well, I feel something. So the point is this, is that in happiness, we have to always understand, what are we reaching for? What are we going for? What are we looking for? So in real spiritual happiness, what we want, what we need, what we look for is that which Krishna, as you mentioned so nicely, is giving us. And what is that? Himself. The more he gives of himself, the more we truly become Krishna conscious. To be Krishna conscious means to be conscious of Krishna in his reality. So the purer our consciousness becomes, the more Krishna conscious we become. And that consciousness is characterized by peacefulness, by blissfulness, and love. If you have those three things, and they are always conscious, you always have them, they're always with us, we're truly happy. But if you're always looking for some happiness and you're miserable, or you feel depressed or disgusted, or then that's not happiness. So real happiness means to be in touch with the source of all happiness, which is Krishna. And if we are in touch with that source, but we should always doubt that we are in touch with it. If you have the doubt of it, then Krishna will make sure that you do get it. Doubt means, maybe I'm not so great, maybe I'm not so wonderful, maybe I'm not so glorious. That way, Krishna will say, that's right, you're not any of those things, but I can make you, I can give you, I can enable you. And so, therefore, don't think you're happy without me. With me, you have everything. Without me, you have nothing.
Yeah. Based on that thing about the material happiness and spiritual happiness, it's a very good point. I remembered while you were speaking of a great pastime, like a small thing, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and when he was having big kirtan with his devotees, everybody was jumping and dancing and having so much of spiritual bliss that they forgot to even eat. For a long time, entire day passed without eating. And Mahaprabhu was saying, dance more. And he was making everybody dance and dance and dance. And everybody was drenched in sweat. And nobody cared about their physical needs. And then finally Mahaprabhu sat down and everybody else sat down. And everybody was like, wow, that was so great. Then Mahaprabhu said, I have something even better for you, something very special. Then he ordered his servant and he said, go out and take everyone out, and there is a tree full of mangoes. And then everybody said, what, this is not the season of the mangoes. Mahaprabhu said, just go. And everybody ran, Haribol, this is prasadam time. So when they went and discovered the mangoes were only pulp. There was no skin and there was no seed. Pure nectar. And everybody was eating those mangoes, the sweetest nectarian mangoes from the spiritual world. No seed and no skin. And that time Mahaprabhu said, this is spiritual happiness. In the material world, material happiness is like an ordinary mango which comes with big seed, and you're chewing and you're like, you're trying to extract the happiness, but you have to go through so much trouble, pain. So the material happiness is like that, but spiritual happiness is unending spiritual bliss, full of nectar. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Right. Thank you. Great. Yeah, where are they now? Now you whet our appetite.